Is your dream to retire on the beach, maybe in Malibu someday? Well, then you might just be able to save enough money by buying a used Chevy Malibu today. That's right behind me today, I got a 2016 Chevy Malibu with almost 180,000 miles on it. Now, they sold a ton of these cars because they were affordable, fuel efficient, but today we're going to talk a little bit more on the reliability side of things. We're going to take a walk around the outside. We're going to talk about the common problems, and we are going to decide if the Chevy Malibu is a buy or a bust. Starting up front on our Chevy Malibu here, and I got to say that I think Chevy did a really nice job on these. I do think these and the Honda Accord actually look very similar. It seems like somebody copied someone, but I do think these are a sharp looking car for being a sort of cheaper car. As far as wear and tear, so far they've been holding up pretty well. I have not seen a ton of rust issues, but obviously if you're in the rust belt, rocker panels, wheel wells, things like that are gonna start to rust. The only real wear and tear I noticed, other than just a few nicks or dinks here or there, as you expect with a car with this amount of miles on, is the black plastic around the doors. Definitely has like the coating kind of peeling off of it, and doesn't look too bad from a distance, but up close is a little bit unsightly. There's a little bit of oxidation on the headlights as you'd expect, but those can be cleaned up pretty easily. Overall outside, this thing still shows really nice for the age and miles. Under the hood of our Malibu here, we got the 1.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder that makes 160 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. Now, if you've been following along with these videos, we've actually reviewed several Chevys and a GMC with this engine recently, and I've actually been pleasantly surprised with how reliable they are for most folks. Not that they're perfect, there is some common problems that we need to go over and you will need to look out for if you're looking at a used one. So these engines have three main things that you gotta be aware of. Number one, and I say this on so many videos now, I feel like I repeat myself all the time, but this is a small 4-cylinder turbo. Turbo wear on any manufacturer that runs these types of engines is pretty common, and it's kind of what every manufacturer has out on the market now today to save on some fuel mileage stuff. So the turbos on these cars usually will go out somewhere between 150, 200,000 miles. Not necessarily anything wrong with the car or anything like that, but it is something you would expect, and it is a slightly more expensive repair. That would be my number one concern. So if you're looking at a used one, take it on a good long test drive and get on it hard and make sure that the turbo pulls as it should and the power feels very consistent. Next up, as far as problems, is oil consumption. And this is two main causes. One is these engines run a very thin oil, and that causes it to burn a little bit more oil. It's very common nowadays, so you gotta make sure it's topped up. The other is the PCV valve is known to fail. Not an expensive part, not difficult, but that will also cause some oil consumption issues. So my biggest advice is just check your oil regularly. You should do that on any car, but it is much more important on these, as is changing your oil on time. They are more sensitive to that. That will help prolong turbo life and the engine itself. So just change your oil every 5,000 miles and check it frequently. The last thing that you want to keep in mind is carbon buildup. This is a direct injection engine, which means the fuel doesn't have the ability to clean up the engine as in the old days. And so that means that you'll end up with carbon buildup inside the engine, which can cause some loss of power, hard starts, or just running rough, possibly some check engine light stuff too. So at 150, 200,000 miles, it'll be time to kind of get inside the engine and have some of that cleaned up. Now this engine is mated to a 6-speed automatic transmission that is more often than not decently reliable. There have been some reports of some weird shifts, clunky shifts. There's also been a few things where the control module will go out, maybe a little torque converter shutter, kind of run-of-the-mill stuff. Outright failures aren't that common. You should keep up with the maintenance on it as well, but really it's a pretty decent transmission. Overall, what I would say for this powertrain is running the codes if there's a check engine light is very important, changing your oil, maintenance, and then if you're looking at a used one, just make sure that it is running properly on a good test drive before you decide to purchase the car. And if it is, you probably are gonna have a fair amount of life left in this powertrain. Moving on to the interior of our Malibu here. And these are one of those interiors that I kind of go like, it's okay. That's my first impression. They're not fancy, they're not luxurious, and there is a few wear and tear items to look at. One is this does not have the leather wrapped steering wheel, and it's a car that needs a steering wheel cover because the cheap GM rubber that they put on the steering wheels wears out at 150,000 miles, and this car is no different. So a little bit of wear and tear there. They actually got almost a Honda problem with some of their seat material where it's turning a little bit plasticky, but no tears or rips or anything like that. So it's held up okay, but you're gonna notice some seat wear for sure up at higher mileage. The interior overall is just kind of plasticky, and this is not a high option car, so it's not leather and some of the more luxurious touches, but it's still an overall middle of the road type interior. You're not a luxury car by any stretch. As far as electronics and things like that, pretty decent. Sometimes the fans will make a little bit of noise over time as they age. Could have some HVAC blend door issues as well. And the infotainment system is definitely showing its age and can be pretty glitchy. But AC, even in this car, blows nice and cold, no issues there. I got no warning lights on the dash. All the windows go up and down just as they should. Yes, Chevy, you will have some quality control stuff. I did notice that the center console definitely rattles inside, so you're gonna have some cheap plastic. But otherwise, I think you could get in here and road trip with no problem. Moving on to the rear seat of the Malibu here, and I'll tell you right off the bat, lots of really good space. Little tight on the headroom, but legroom and stuff is really good. Seat is a little bit hard, but overall pretty comfortable. And I think the space back here is actually way better than the prior generation of Malibu. They did a nice job on the redesign here. Again, not a luxurious space. You got the same material on the doors back here as you do up front, which is a nice touch, but still very plasticky, very simple. It is just sort of a starter car type feel back here, but you could go on a road trip back here with no issues. Moving on to the trunk of the Malibu here, and it is absolutely spacious. Not a lot of issues here. Huge cavernous space back here. You can take as much as you want along, and there is buttons to release the rear seat. Right here, makes it really simple, super functional, good space for just about anything you need to bring along. Pulling out onto the road in our turbo Malibu. We have a nice clear stretch of road in front of us, so we're gonna get on it and do a little pull. I'll tell you what, like a lot of the 1.5 liters, it actually has plenty of power. Once the turbo's spooled up a little bit and you're like out on the road from 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, merging type scenarios, it has plenty of power. Where they are a little slow is like a 0 to 60. If you're going from a stoplight or anything like that, it just takes a little bit for the engine to rev up and really give you some good power. But right there, it did really nice. The transmission shifted through the gears very smoothly. I got no complaints there, even though, like I said, sometimes people do complain about a clunky shift here or there. Now, since this is gonna be an important topic now for just about anybody who's buying this car, let's talk about fuel mileage. This guy is rated at 30 and 38 miles to the gallon, which I think is excellent numbers for this size of a car. Really fuel efficient, and I'm impressed with those numbers. I don't think they're necessarily class leading, but they are very solid, and you're not gonna have any complaints there. We are going over some bumps now on our little back road that we're on, and I will tell you, I hear some clunks a little bit in the rear, which is going to be something you're gonna run into if it has not already been replaced on these cars. Number one thing that Chevy can't do is build good wheel bearings. A lot of times, 75, 100,000 miles, you're gonna have to replace wheel bearings. And then while not as prevalent, just typical stuff, wear and tear items, are struts, ball joints, things like that. And I just hear a little bit of maybe a sway bar, bushing, something like that in the rear clunking on this, but it's not overly loud. But if you're looking at a used one, I would definitely listen for what the suspension is doing. I have no vibrations. You could have a CV axle as they age. I would expect that, but I got nothing through the steering wheel, anything like that. Overall, just cruising around, I'm actually kind of impressed. Every time I've had a car with one of these little 1.5 liter engines, when I'm driving it, I'm like, man, these things drive pretty nice. I'm always pleasantly surprised. Now, we'll talk about my final decision here in a minute, but obviously I think people probably cross-shop this, Honda Accord, and a Toyota Camry. At least I think those would be the three. Probably a few other cars in there that could be thrown in, but I think these are more reliable than people give them credit for, especially Honda had some issues with some of their little turbocharged engines. So I think they might actually be more reliable than most people think. Back from the test drive, and now it's time for the rubber to meet the road, and we are going to decide if the Chevy Malibu is a buy or a bust. Test drive went pretty well. No, they're not luxurious. They're just a sort of cheaper family commuter type car. That being said, the market on these, somewhere around $7,000, $8,000 with higher mileage like this one on it. The biggest thing if you're looking at one of these is just really maintenance and how it drives on a test drive. I know we went over that under the hood, but take a trusted mechanic. If you're not familiar with them, take a trusted mechanic along and just make sure that there's no, overheating, weird shifts, and that the engine is running smooth. And I think you could get a fair amount of miles out of one of these. The ultimate decision for these reviews is if a car with 150 or 200,000 miles will make it to 250 or 300 without major issues. And I actually believe that these Malibus will. The 1.5 liter, surprisingly, is actually a pretty reliable engine. Lots of happy owners out there, and I've done a ton of research and talked to a fair amount of people, and huge problems just aren't that prevalent. Now, you're gonna have some Chevy quality control issues. You're gonna have some clunks from the suspension you gotta take care of as they age, but nothing that would really tell me that you shouldn't buy this car with higher mileage. That's why today we are gonna call the Chevy Malibu a buy. I think they're a pretty solid, simple car and could really serve someone well. And if you're in the market for one, check the link down below. This one's actually for sale right now, or a variety of other great cars. If you have one of these cars and have had a great experience, I want to hear about it. Or if you had something that I missed or you disagree with my decision there, I want to hear all about that too. I appreciate you guys following along. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.